Hi everybody and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be reviewing the modern contemporary sofa Marlow. Its feature is that it has two versions, one with high feet that we see today here and one with invisible feet, and it's a contemporary design sofa with a very comfortable sitting style. Let's dive in. As we said, it has two versions, and here we see the version with the stainless steel feet. They have this slender design. They are 15 centimeters high. The one with the version with invisible feet, it has a thicker, higher structure that goes to the ground. Actually, these feet are normally PVC black feet. They are normally 2 centimeters, 1.5–2 centimeters high, and they are invisible not because they are transparent, but because they are very shallow and they are kept quite inside the perimeter so that you don't normally perceive them. The model is 101 centimeters deep, which is reasonable considering that it's very comfortable. It has a quite high backrest. In general it's quite high because formally it has a 49 centimeters height for the seat. Of course it does compress when you sit onto it, and it's 88 centimeters in the back. As we see, the counter back is reasonably high, and so overall it gives a great support. I described a modern contemporary sofa because it has design feet, but it also has rounded shapes. As you see here, normally this part, this curve, we call it the hammer because you see that the armrest is shorter than the actual depth of the seat. So we have this hammer moving in front of the armrest, and here we don't have stitches, but it's all curved, just like the armrest is curved itself. And so there are just basically two pieces of fabrics, one that is curved this way horizontally and one that is curved vertically, and so here we have a simple it's called simple linear stitching that it curves around here, and it underlines this design. We said that it has quite a high counter back. The back is perfectly finished, and we see that the back also actually takes up the design detail of the stitching that curves around the shapes. It's reasonably good looking from the back. Of course, being a high sofa, it's not fully ideal when you place it in the middle of the room. It's not that you can't place it in the middle of the room, you simply need to consider that it's higher, and so maybe sometimes you have a table, a dining table on the back of the sofa, and then you have the telly on the wall system in the front of the sofa with a higher backrest. Of course, you perceive the sofa more rather than a lower sofa. This is very trivial. Normally, when this is made so that a high backrest cushion has the right support so that it doesn't sink in under the weight of the user, of the person. And when this is done, it's quite normal to have this, you see this tiny gap here. This is a standard approach because when you have a high counter back, if you join the armrest together with the counter back, if you join the two parts directly, it's normally not as good looking as with this sort of gap. Sometimes it goes deeper. So in this case, it's quite tiny, and it's nice to look at. The armrest is quite shallow, it's quite low, and in this regard, when I'm sitting like this, it's not the most comfortable because I don't have the right support on the arm, on my elbow here. At the same time, a lower armrest, it's very comfortable. When using a cushion, a scatter cushion, I can rest my head here, and it's very comfortable when I lie back. As to the fillings, this model, it's all made of feathers. These natural feathers are supported by polyurethane, so there's a layer of density 35 polyurethane on the seat, so that it's very comfy when I sit. Reasonably bouncy because underneath it there's interwoven bands, elastic bands, which gives this sort of a bouncy feel. The back cushion is of course softer because it uses the density 23, but it keeps its shape. The seat is reasonably deep, and so I can both keep a formal sitting position like this if I were drinking tea, or even an informal sitting position because I move my bottom towards the front and I can lie back, and I'm 185 in height, and I can even rest my neck on the cushion, and this is why I was meaning it's one of the most comfortable sofa that I know. Okay, this composition here is made up by a lateral with armrest and the lateral with open corner, so two elements. This is quite an unusual composition, because it's quite unusual to have a linear composition with just one armrest on the side and the upper corner on the other side. It's more frequent to have the chaise-longue here. But in some cases it's quite interesting. We could imagine that there's an entrance on this side, and when I'm coming in from the entrance, or maybe from a corridor or from the night area, there's a passage on that side, and it's nice to have that chaise-longue basically that goes in this direction on the side rather than on the front. It's a very flexible composition in terms of dimensions, because it can range between 215 and 527 using these two elements, because the linear element with one armrest has 10 different dimensions available, and the linear element with open corner has 6 different dimensions available, and so this is why we have such a wide range. As we said, this is a linear element with armrest in 10 different dimensions, and it can be matched to a chaise-longue. The Marlow sofa has 3 different chaise-longues. These chaise-longues are 165 in depth, so considering that the sofa is 101, the chaise-longue comes out by 64 centimeters, which is rather comfortable, and it has 3 widths available. Why it's a good thing to have 3 widths for a chaise-longue? Because, you know, depending on the overall size that you wish for your sofa, it's good to have 3 different chaise-longue with different widths, because if I have a very big composition, it simply doesn't look good to have a narrow chaise-longue, because I have a very wide linear element, and the narrow chaise-longue, it doesn't offer you an aesthetic proportion between the two elements. When I have a smaller composition, if I have a 120 chaise-longue, then it's likely that I don't have enough sitting space on the linear element, and this is why 3 chaise-longues are very convenient in terms of how you design your room. Of course, we do have the linear elements with 2 armrests, one on each side, and we have 6 dimensions. And the great thing is that all these are single pieces. With the bigger ones, you must consider how feasible will it be to bring a full piece inside your home, because sometimes it's simply not feasible, and you must consider this topic before ordering your sofa. One thing to consider is that the 3 smaller ones, 180, 200 and 220, are made up by 2 cushions, so they have a rather more modern, rather slash design look, while the bigger ones, starting not only the 277 and the 320, but also the 246, which is a reasonably big but rather standard 3-seater, even that one has 3 seats. And the 3 seats, you can see it in the catalog, in the pictures, give you a more contemporary look than the 2 seats. It really changes the perception of the sofa. The Marlow sofa is also a fully sectional sofa, so you can make any composition, also the corner L-shaped compositions. You can do it in 3 ways. So you can have a standard corner, and this standard corner is 108 by 101, reasonably equal, the 2 sides. And to the corner element, you can attach a linear with armrest. So you can have linear with armrest, with an armrest on the left, then the corner, and then the linear with the armrest on the right. This is very standard. Then you can have the meridienne element. The meridienne element in this case is 220, and the meridienne element is when you can sit on the shorter side of the sofa. You have the backrest on the shorter side of the sofa, but at the end of the shorter side is not an armrest, but an open element, also called hammer. And then here you have also, it's called the comfort corner. You can see it in the catalog, which has a peculiar shape, because it's angled not at 90 degrees, but with a wider angle. It's a very peculiar element, and at the end of it, you can either attach a linear element with open corner, which we saw before, but you can also attach another linear element with armrests for bigger compositions. We finally close the all available elements with its dedicated poofs, which is very simple. Of course, you can have it with the feet or resting on the ground, and it's 101 by 101, and we remember that 101 is the depth of the sofa. Of course, the version with invisible feet, you don't see the feet. In this version, where they are 15 centimeters high and they have a rather interesting look, you have 5 finishes available. This one is glossy titanium. It's similar to black nickel or black chrome or dark chrome. Then you have matte black. Then you have champagne, which is convenient when you need to match beige, cream, brown in terms of colors in the room. And then you have stainless steel. And in stainless steel you can have the polished stainless steel, the chrome look, or the opaque stainless steel. So you have quite a variety. In terms of the fabric, of course, you can mount any fabric, eco leather or velvet of our very wide collection. Here we have one of our best sellers, which is the joint fabric. Joint, it's in our collection, it's the fabric which is represent the entry price of our collection, and still it's a very interesting and practical and convenient in terms of use fabric, because probably myself I had lower expectations for joint, and when I saw it I said, oh, it's beautiful. I thought it was a fabric of the higher end of our collection, while it looks great in terms of feel and touch, and it's also very practical because, well, it has a wide variety of colors, and it's very practical because it has a stain resistance feature, and it's machine washable at 30 degrees, and it has very high martindale data, so it's very resistant also to use and abuse in years. And so, you know, this is very important. Of course, every material, every fabric, every leather has its price, and sometimes the price do represent the features and sometimes the reliability, but not always, because, for example, in this case, this is I can say it's the cheapest fabric in our collection, and still it looks great and it's very practical, and there are higher end fabrics, more expensive fabrics, which are less practical, and in your eyes, in your perception, they might not look as good as this one. So my suggestion is that you start choosing the brand that you like for your sofa, for example, once you trust the brand, I do not suggest to rely on the price to say, oh, this is good fabric and this is bad, because some clients, they ask, okay, I really want the best, so I should take the most expensive fabrics, and my answer is no. You must start choosing what you like, what gives you the features that you expect in using the sofa, and then you judge the price. This is my suggestion. So we've come to the end of this product review for the sofa Marlow. I hope that you liked the video. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing to the channel to stay in touch with our news, and thanks for watching again. Bye bye.